There is no doubt, as with everything in our society, money makes the world go round, and that is certainly true for those that use illicit funds to support their activities. This bill and all the measures that are included in it, and indeed with the other financial bills that preceded it, this one aims to make the activities of illegal and illicit organisations more and more difficult. For that reason, I support the bill and what it is trying to achieve. But interestingly, and what caught my attention, was a statement on the Library Service, who did a great job in this bill, as they do all the time, in the introduction to the bill, where they said the bill softens the requirement to examine the background and purpose of a transaction by qualifying that this only needs to be done as far as reasonably possible. And I thought that was very interesting, and it led me to wonder actually why. When I look at what happens with this and who launders funds, the financial system, of course, who have to be protected at all costs in the Irish context, there is no doubt possibly that the financial institutions do not actually launder funds themselves or set up funds for laundering, possibly, but they are all laundered through banks and financial institutions, and that is the crux of the issue. That it's the banks and financial institutions that allow for the money laundering and facilitate it and everything that it does. The banks must have knowledge of where the money laundering is happening, how it's happening, but it's not done to them. And when the amounts of money that are talking about are staggering, and I think that gets to the crux of the issue as to why the banks aren't touched in relation to it. The amounts are mind-boggling, and when you look at it, the US Financial Crimes Enforcement Network shows that $2 trillion between 1999 and 2017, now I don't know even how many zeros are in $2 trillion, but suspicious transactions are reported globally by banks. Their files show that such important institutions as Deutsche Bank, HSBC Holdings plc, and we know them well here, continue to facilitate suspicious transactions, despite even being fined for doing that, because actually the amounts of the fines are insignificant compared to the amount of money that they get access to and that they can move through the transactions. And I suppose as an interesting aside, Deutsche Bank is also the main banker, I think, for the President of America too, so that might give some indication of how reputable Deutsche Bank is. It has been reported that $1.3 trillion of that $2 trillion has been moved through Deutsche Bank, and that's very significant. So surely the way to tackle money laundering is centrally based in the banking system, but there seems to be little attitude to actually move against them and to target the banking system in relation to it. I saw as well today that there have been no prosecutions within institutions, and sadly that does not surprise me, because official Ireland places banks at a huge level, well above citizens, and of course only citizens commit crimes, not institutions and financials. And I think we need to get to the heart of that, and we need to change that responsibility and actually make the banks responsible for what the actions that they carry out. They're not innocent in this. They're not innocent bystanders that somebody just actually happens to lodge $1 billion or €1 billion in their account and that they don't know anything about it. The banks know rightly where this money comes from, but they choose not to tell. And the financial system and the government system and the whole system around that chooses to turn a blind eye at it. And we'll target the drug dealers and the people who are hassling the youngsters and getting them to do transactions through the account, and we'll get publicity in relation to prosecutions and that. And meanwhile, the banks will continue on doing what they're doing and actually facilitating money laundering on a massive scale, a scale that would make our eyes water. And sadly, probably Dublin here is a very important cog in that wheel to allow that to happen in our financial transactions, and that's possibly why we won't ever question it seriously and actually look at what caused the problems and what happens in relation to it. If we were serious about tackling this, we have to tackle the banks and make the banks responsible for it. And the fact that there has been no prosecutions under any financial regulations and irregularities in this country says about the height that we place this at. Thank you.